Leinster produced a performance that they hadn't looked capable of in recent weeks to secure a home final. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. A much improved performance from Leinster in this one. Glasgow going the opposite way. They look to be the team that were actually building into this semi-final, but it wasn't to be, other than a flurry early on in the game where it kind of went back and forth. So let's talk about the game itself. Leinster, very quick start from them, win a penalty right at the kick-off, go to the corner. Glasgow initially do well to repel the maul, and then Leinster look to move the ball. They work it back within a few metres. Jameson Gibson Park down with a bullet pass to Sheehan, who goes between two defenders over to score. That's converted for 7 points to 0. Glasgow then hit back straight away to get the ball to Witt. Stain makes a break, and then he knows he's got Horn inside supporting, so puts a lovely angled kick back in behind there, and Horn gets there ahead of anyone else to score. Conversions missed, 7 points to 5. But Glasgow again exposing that Leinster defence when you get to Witt. If you can get to Witt quickly and you have the pace out there, you really can hurt them. But unfortunately for Glasgow, it was one of very few chances that they created in this game. But what a start to the game. And I actually saw on the coverage there was a lady who was a Leinster fan. She was making her way to her seat, and she was carrying a couple of they weren't points, like beers, back to her seat. And I was thinking, like, you've missed like 2 tries in the game, like a brilliant start to the game. Like, it's kind of weird, some people's priorities, honestly. Like for me, whenever I go to games, like, I get there early, I'm sat there in my seat, and then, even if I'm busting to go to the toilet or wherever, I don't leave my seat until the game was over. And then, after the game, you're not going to be able to go to the toilet, so you got to wait until you get back to a train station or back home or wherever, right? But it was just a bit funny to me, what people's priorities are when they're at the game. But yeah, really good start. Like, looked like it was maybe going to be an entertaining back and forth game between them. But, there was a time when it shifted, and we'll talk about that when we get to that, actually. But from here then, Sheehan breaks down the touchdown for Leinster. They move it inside. Penny then goes over, but Lowe was ahead of him, obstructing, so it's no try. And then we have a bit of a round of handbags, but not much. There wasn't actually that much niggle in the game. There were a few kind of, the usual comments or pushes and looks and stuff like that. Like, it's rugby, it's going to happen. But there wasn't that kind of, real, like, if I was a Glasgow fan, I would have wanted my team to really kick off there. Even if it meant 2 players went to the bin, just get something to try and get that a little bit of an edge, or like, get something for yourself. But it didn't happen. Leinster then, they come again. Ryan and Sheehan with good carries, but then Cummings gets over the ball, win a penalty. Great defence from Glasgow. But Cummings, in a losing team, I thought he was outstanding today. Thought he was really good. George Horn, unfortunately, like, he's a try scorer for Glasgow, but probably one of his poorest games that he's played for the team, honestly. Then the rain starts coming down, and this I think is where the game starts to switch completely, because Leinster then start putting up bombs in and around the Glasgow 22, and they're getting some real reward. Like, Tommy O'Brien especially, and Lowe as well, in fairness to him, but they're getting up there and they're competing. They're either winning the ball or they're forcing knock-ons from Glasgow, and they get a reward. They get a scrum in a decent position in the 22. Leinster then win a penalty at the scrum. Richardson pinged for collapsing. Prendergast pops over the penalty for 10-5. And it felt like at that stage, it was very similar to the Scarlets game in terms of the scoreboard. But I was expecting Glasgow then to bring more in the response. We saw how Scarlets, came back there towards half time, and I hope Glasgow would be able to do something similar. But again, this is around the time that I feel like the game was actually won by Leinster, even though the scores are very close. And it's because Glasgow, in response to Leinster putting up the bombs, they changed their kicking strategy. They started doing the same thing. And in fairness, like you see, like it's bucketing down. Why not do the same thing? Have Leinster knock the ball on and maybe get some good field position. But for me, that was a mistake, because Glasgow went before that. What they were doing was they were putting the ball, on the deck into space, forcing Leinster to scramble, and then they were getting a good reward from, because they'd kick all the way down into Leinster 22, and Leinster would kick it out maybe around the 10-metre line, which means that Glasgow were moving from their own half into the Leinster half. They have the line out then, and they've already shown if they can move the ball quickly off the top of the line out, they can get to width, they can get around that Leinster defence, and it can really cause them problems. But they start putting up contestable kicks instead, and I don't know why. Like, your kicking strategy was working, and that was the kicking strategy that pretty much that they were using against the Stormers. Now, against the Stormers as well, they did put up kicks to compete, and they were better in the air than the Stormers, but you could see that Leinster were winning the contest in the air. So why would you do that? Even if you're potentially getting 50-50 on that, it's not a win for you. It's going to be a knock on for you, a knock on for them, etc. Whereas the kicking to the ground was definitely a win for them, because every time they're doing that, they were making 20-30 meters. They were going from round about their own, just outside their own 22, made their own 10-meter line into the Leinster half, and having having the possession as well. So for me, that's kind of where I felt. I'm not saying like I'm some oracle, and I said in my head, Leinster definitely have this game won. But I felt even at the time it was a mistake what they were doing, and we saw that kind of play out, I think, for the rest of the half, and then the rest of the game as well, into the second half as well. But Glasgow, then they have a sustained period in the Leinster half, but they from here, I think they were round about the 10-meter line. The ball goes loose off a tackle, and Tommy O'Brien scoops it up and he kicks it downfield. Then he's chasing it. I think it was with Hastings. They both kind of slide to try and get the ball, and both kind of slide past the ball. James Gibson Park gets the ball first, picks it up, and then he puts a pass inside to Osborne. He goes through a gap and under the post, but after the conversion is taken, we have a TMO check, and it's very clear on the replays as well, that pass is clearly forward, no try, and it just felt like sloppy play. And Leinster certainly much improved today, but at times like these, there were sloppy instances. We saw for the ruled out Penny try earlier, where Lowe was just in the wrong place, and then for this as well, like it's criminal putting that pass forward, absolutely no pressure on him. And all he has to do is if he's overrun the pass, well then there's nobody really near him. He can go himself and look for somebody else in support, pop the pass off to them, and then they're in as well. So it was not great, honestly, from Leinster in that regard. Then Osborne, though he does get his try a few minutes later, Leinster win a ball in the air. Again, that contestable kick, Leinster win it. It sets off a counter-attack from them. Barrett with a lovely offload as they're going up the left. He finds Lowe with a one-handed pass to Osborne, and then he's over in the corner. Conversion missed, 15 points to 5. Glasgow then, as I was saying, they were dominant in the air against the Stormers, and I thought that really helped them get their attack going in that game. But right now in the game, I think for most of the rest of the game as well, Leinster very much on top in the air. Then Leinster, they win another scrum penalty, go to the corner. They they try a set move off the line out. Sheehan comes on a wrap. Then Lowe comes on a switch, but Glasgow, they saw it coming and they defended very well. Then Leinster recycle a few times, and then Clarkson actually forces his way over to score. Anyway, conversion missed again, 20 points to 5. So, Leinster doing well, but at this stage, I'm worried about how many points they're leaving on the tee as well. But I felt like as well, even though they are leaving points here, that they've, other than that, they've found a level that they haven't hit really since the Champions Cup quarter final between these two. Then Horn then drops a pass off a line out in his own 22. Leinster with another chance to strike, and they move it left from the scrum, but Lowe drops it out there. Again, potential for another kick-off, but it's all smiles. Eventually, we come back for a Leinster penalty at the scrum. Leinster kick to the corner. Conan claims a line out, set up the maul. They're going forward, then Barrett and Tommy O'Brien pile in as well. Over the go, Sheehan is the score. Conversion missed, and it's 25 points to 5. And, looking at the scoreline, I was thinking, okay, well, it's a big scoreline, and it might be all over, but this Glasgow team, I felt like that, even with that kind of at halftime, that they have a chance if they can get back within maybe 10 points, between 40 and 60 minutes, because Leinster don't score that many points beyond the 60-minute mark in a lot of their games. So I was thinking, if get back within 10 points and just give yourself a puncher's chance, because Glasgow are one of those teams that can score, tries and bursts. They can get 2-3 in a kind of a 10-minute period. So, wasn't kind of counting my chickens at that stage, but it really felt like that the next 20 minutes after halftime going to be crucial in terms of if they're going to be able to muster a comeback at all. And, I was also wondering, is the curse of the defending champions going to strike again? Because no defending champion has defended their title in the URC era, and unfortunately for Glasgow, it's kind of held up as well. But Glasgow, they bring on Stafford McDowell at the break for Hastings, so he's in the centres, and then Jordan goes to 10. And then about 5 minutes after the restart, they also changed their entire front row, and I think they brought on somebody else as well at that time. But it's Leinster still applying pressure. Venter playing the arm and the line out, and they go to the corner. Glasgow, they halt them all. Leinster then roll it. Sheehan goes off the back, stopped just short. Bart then goes to the line, but the ball is dislodged in the tackle. Thought that was good defence from the Warriors. Even though they're 20 points down, they weren't going to give a soft score away, and it's nice to see that from players that they're going to keep going, to the bitter end, but they still need to be up in the Leinster 22 if they're going to have any chance. So then Leinster, they're winning penalties into 22. They opt for the post. Prendergast hits the post. Commentary team at that stage said he's a bit hit and miss from the tee today. And I was thinking, no, he's miss and miss. Like, it's a terrible kicking performance, honestly, from him. Then another penalty into 22, and Glasgow get a warning. Leinster go to the corner. Glasgow do well to push them all back. Then they stop Sheehan as he goes off the back. But then another bullet pass from Gibson Park, and Osborne is over, and it's converted for 32 points to 5. And at that stage, because I've got a lot of respect for Glasgow, that's when I kind of relaxed and thought, okay, no, we should have this one now. Because I couldn't even see a fantastic, attack like Glasgow being able to produce enough to come back from there. From here then, Lowe, he breaks up the left. Baird in support. Then they move it quickly to the right. Conan to Tommy O'Brien. And then Frawley goes over as Glasgow run out of defenders. Conversion missed, 37 points to 5. Glasgow then win the penalty. They go to the corner. Sneyman steals the line out, and Leinster able to clear. then we have a counter attack from Glasgow that I felt really summed them up today. They break the Leinster line. They get in behind, and they can't finish off. They end up knocking it on. And I was thinking, like, Glasgow in form, that's a try, like, every day and twice on Sundays. You expect Glasgow in those positions to score. Now, Leinster scramble was better this week than we've seen in a long time, but I don't think that excuses this particular one. I think Glasgow should have scored that, but I think they were blown out at that stage, in terms of just being able to get there in support of these breaks as well. Glasgow, then they work it into the Leinster 22. They're applying some late pressure. They tap a penalty. Leinster drive them back, and you feel like Leinster actually have the numbers in defence. But then Dobie just sells a dummy, and all the Leinster defence bought it, and then he goes under the post. That's converted for 37 points to 12. We then have a bit of magic for Tuipulotu. Glasgow go to the corner from penalty. They move it off the maul, and then he steps his way through the Leinster defence and shows great strength to score. Converted for 37 points to 19, and that was our full-time score. So it was nice to see a bit of resurgence from Glasgow towards the end there. But again, I was hoping for more from them today, even as a Leinster fan, because again, I've said it so many times before, I want to see teams at their best going at each other. And if my team loses in that scenario, then I'm not going to complain about them if the other team were just better, but when a team doesn't perform, it really is kind of sad for the fans, and obviously sad for the players as well. They're not going out there trying to lose the semi-final. They're going out there with belief, thinking, we've worked out certain things about the Leinster defence, etc. But Leinster just improved, I think, a little bit too much for them. But let's have a look at the stats, and then we'll come back and talk about the teams after that. So on attack, 6 tries for Leinster, 3 for the Warriors. And I felt like, Leinster, there's still a lot of work to do on their attack. They blew 2 tries that they should have got. And, at times as well, a little bit of a lack of a cutting edge from them too. They kind of had to go to the power at time, and they had the power over Glasgow, but they're not going to have the power necessarily over the Bulls or the Sharks in the finals. So definitely going to have to work on that. Glasgow, the only try really that I'm not going to say that counted, because that sounds like disrespectful, but the only try that really kind of impacted where the game was going was that horn try. And I thought once they got that, like straight off the kickoff, once they got that, I think if they had gotten the conversion and got to 7-all, maybe we would have seen something a little bit different in the game. But after that, it was too long until they'd gotten their second and then the third try. The game was gone at that stage. And Leinster are, kind of notorious for kind of taking the foot off the gas in the last 20 minutes as well. And something, to worry about as a Leinster fan as well, is it doesn't, for a lot of time, it doesn't really matter about the scoreline. Leinster, even when they're trailing, find it difficult to find scores in the last 20 minutes. And obviously that's not for a lack of effort, but it's just not being used to having to score in the closing minutes of games. Possession then 55% to 45 in favour of Leinster. So, holding onto the ball and just denying the Warriors that possession. And that's another thing that, again, the kicking strategy from Glasgow, it didn't make sense to me that they not that they would just kick the ball away, but that they were kicking it into a contest where you look at how the other contest has gone. You've got to be thinking you're maybe got maybe 40 at best % chance of winning the ball back. So I didn't understand that, honestly. Clean breaks then 13-4 for in favour of Leinster. So Leinster certainly breaking the line a lot better. And you look at defenders beaten, it's just crazy. Like 15 for Leinster. So they converted almost every defender beaten turned into a clean break. So that's, a mark against the Warriors' defence there. And certainly, something in the favour of the Leinster attack that, when they did break the line, beat a defender, they were able to break the line as well. But again, it's just those finishing touches that really need to be kind of tightened up a bit. But Glasgow, 36 defenders beaten for 4 clean breaks. That has, like, I'm trying to think, has there been in the URC this season, is that the worst defenders beaten to clean breaks ratio that we've seen? Like, it's like 1 in 9 defenders beaten, they actually got a break out of it. Like that's poor, especially for an attack as generally or normally as incisive as the Warriors. That really is a poor return. Obviously, again, you have to give some credit to the Leinster scramble, but when it's that big, you've also got to question the Warriors in terms of their attack. We saw that they can do it. It's just that they weren't able to do it anywhere near enough, and especially in those crucial periods where the scores were fairly close. Offloads then 17 from Leinster to 9 from Glasgow, and I haven't looked at the stat yet, but I'm pretty sure I know he came off the bench and was the leading offloader for Leinster, given that he has 40 already this season. But that's their attack. Onto defence then, territory 70% to 30%. And again, that was the big worry for Glasgow, was that, not just that Leinster had more of the ball, but it was all being played in their half of the field. And it's very hard to kind of turn it around. And again, questions why they were putting up the contestable kicks when early on in the game, kicking, deeper to Leinster and forcing them to kick off the field was actually working and getting them into decent territory. So, it's kind of a little bit baffling for me. Number of tackles then 100 to 130. So we don't normally see, Leinster just about broke 100, but we don't normally see both teams breaking 100 in this type of game. Leinster missing 26 to Glasgow's 15. So tackle success 73 for Leinster and 76 for Glasgow. So Leinster down on even their normal, Leinster, one of the few teams over the regular season that would regularly be in somewhere in the 70s for their tackle success, first up tackles, but you expect a scramble to make up for that. Glasgow 76 is kind of low for them, but not too bad, honestly, in a knockout. Like, if you get to 80% in a semi-final or a final, I think you're doing fairly well. So, although they did miss some tackles, they're actually, percentage-wise better than Leinster. But it just wasn't enough for them. They weren't going to win, having gone 20 points down, you're not going to win the game then on your defence. And sadly, it wasn't to be for them. Turnovers 1, then 5 each. Turnovers not hugely influential in the game, again, just simply because Leinster just ground out and built that lead. Kicks retained 10 for Leinster and 6 for Glasgow. As I was saying, Glasgow coming out on the worst side of that. And I've already talked about it, so I'm not going to labour the point. On to penalties then, 7 conceded by Leinster. Again, keep it in single figures, and you're doing you're doing the right thing there. Glasgow with 14, certainly too much of them. The fact that the scrum was against them for most of the game, I think they certainly won a scrum penalty towards the end after the front rows has been changed, but again, too little too late for them. On to players then, attack. Tries, 2 for Osborne. Obviously, Sheen got 2 as well. 1, I'm glad they put Jamie Dobie as the one there as well. Even though, like, Horn's try, again, for me, was the one that kind of could have affected the outcome. But I just liked the way Dobie got that try. I thought it was really nice, especially in a team that were beaten at that stage as well. Successful carries then, 8 for Ryan Baird. And I think he got player of the match as well. I talked about him when we were talking about the teams yesterday or last night. And I was just saying about how much he'd improved. So great to see that from him. Tom Jordan with 4 for the Warriors. Then clean breaks, Jamie Osborne with 3 and Josh Mackay with 1 for the Warriors. And you know, the Warriors have had a poor attacking performance when their highest clean break for any of their players is 1. Defenders beaten, then Jamie Osborne with 3, and then Sione Tuipulotu with 10. Like, you know, again, like he's beaten 10 players. You know, I don't know how many of them he beat when he scored that try, but still, you know, there was a few others where he'd beaten players and they couldn't make anything out of it. Meters made then, Jamie Osborne was 70, Josh Mackay with 136, but a lot of that I think was just running ball back. You know, again, they weren't making that many breaks. Offloads then, it's actually Tommy O'Brien with 3 for Leinster. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Snyman actually had 3 as well, you know, as him, because I definitely saw 2 when he came on. George Horn then with 2 for Glasgow, you know, at least he gets on the stats there. But again, he got a try, he got his couple of offloads, but certainly, you know, not his proudest game, I think, for Glasgow. But that happens. Great players, you know, it happens sometimes, have an off day, and unfortunately today was his. Number of tackles then, Scott Penny with 13 and Rory Darge with 15. Darge again, just, you know, in a losing team, I thought the Glasgow, the whole back row, you know, certainly not shirking their responsibility, just not able to get themselves on top. Turnovers 1 then, Tommy O'Brien with 3 and Horn with 2 as well for Glasgow. So even though, you know, he did make some mistakes, you've got to give him props for the things that he did right as well. Okay, so let's talk about the teams. Let's start with Glasgow. I'm very surprised, honestly, with the performance today. I said in you know, the preview twice that I thought that Glasgow were, in terms of recent performance, were playing better, and you know, my head was saying they're going to win. I did back Leinster just because I'm a Leinster fan, but honestly, I can't claim that I called the winner, you know, because I stated twice like that. Basically, if I hadn't been a Leinster fan, I would have picked Glasgow to win, and we've got to be fair about that. So, you know, very surprised with the performance, and you know, I'm disappointed in that. Again, you know, I it's weird. I know it's weird, but I want to see teams doing well, even if it's doing well against my team. You know, because that's the rugby I enjoy. Again, is teams just producing absolutely like epic performances on both sides, and then the team that comes through being the one, you know, that, you know, they deserved it, but they've had to work their asses off for it. And Leinster, they did work hard today, but I don't think Glasgow made them work harder than they needed to for it. And they're going to be disappointed with that, and their fans are going to be disappointed too. But still, you know, they had injuries. They're obviously going to get players back, you know, for next season. And next season, what I'm hoping from this Glasgow team is that they take another step forward. I want to see them really competing in Europe. I thought in the Champions Cup this season, they had that chance to really take another step and, you know, win their pool. And they weren't, unfortunately, they weren't able to do that. Now, they did qualify for knockouts and they got to a quarter final, which is very good compared to, you know, Scottish teams' performances recently in the top, you know, at the top table in Europe. But I'm hoping that they make that another step forward, because they're too talented a side, you know, not to do that. You know, they've got a trophy from last year, and hopefully that hunger is there next year now to kind of again just go up another level as well, because I think they're capable of it. On to Leinster then. You know, I've been disparaging of them over the last few weeks, and I think they deserve the criticism. I don't think anyone can say, based on the performances that they put in, that they weren't. They have, you know, they have kind of reached a level that we haven't seen for a while from them, but it certainly wasn't perfect. You know, the attack still needs work on it. the line out was better, and especially the defensive line out. I thought the likes of Bird getting up there, disrupting Glasgow line out was good. The scrum went well too, but Prendergast kicking off the tee was absolutely atrocious, and in the final, they could. You never say never. Like they could. It could be a similar game to this where they don't. It doesn't matter points off the tee, but generally you look at finals. You look at the potential. Either the Bulls or the Sharks, those two teams, and you think it's not going to be an easy ride for Leinster. Every point is going to count, and that's something definitely has to be sorted out. I thought he was better ball in hand today, but the worry for me with him is that you have a pack that is on top, and he can look brilliant, and he can put in like his miss out passes and stuff like that. But you look when the pressure comes on, even in this game, dropping balls, the kicking from the tee again, and a lot of kind of hesitation as well in his play. Not sure which option to take and stuff like that. So definitely improved today, but he again, I feel like he's a player where I hope Leinster recruit someone to come in, not only to put pressure on him for a starting spot, but also to just guide him. I think they need a kind of season 10 at the club next season, or at the province next season, to kind of be that kind of Contepomi to the way he was with Johnny Sexton. Not necessarily that he was thinking, I want to make sure Johnny Sexton is a better player or whatever. But it just happens, right? You bring in a player who is at that level, and they're going to kind of test and bring along the other players that are there too. So other than that, I felt the back row went well in this one. I talked about Sheehan starting or on the bench. I felt like impact off the bench would be good. Kelleher, I thought, had brilliant impact off the bench, and he went on a crazy run, where he went from well outside the 22 up to like the 5 meter line as well. So he's kind of shown, hey, I can do it too. So that was good. Brian Bird again was excellent. I thought, Penny showed why he kind of got rewarded for his performances earlier in the season that we've had injuries. Conan, Conan was decent, but again, he's one of those players that if you can bring him off the bench when the game breaks up, he's even better. So I'd love to see him kind of fresher legs towards the end of the games. I thought the front row went well. Clarkson starting there, like Porter. Porter, when things are going well from in the scrum around the park, he's always super competitive at the breakdown. But when it's kind of going against him in the scrum, he then starts getting pinged at the breakdown as well. But today was a very good performance from him. I thought Boyle as well, coming off the bench, did really well. And that centre partnership as well of Barrett and Osborne, it certainly has potential in there. I think, it may be, a bit of a blessing for Leinster that those two, are playing in there. I don't know what's going to happen with the final, because like Henshaw and Ringrose is kind of always kind of in and out of the team all the time. And that's a little bit of the disruption that Leinster kind of had recently as well. But, the likes of Tommy O'Brien, working his way into the team this season on his performance, I thought, behind Bird, he was probably the next best player for Leinster today as well. So, things overall, I think certainly looking up for Leinster, but there's a lot of, to lift that trophy, they've still got to find another level, because whoever it is, whether it's the Bulls or the Sharks, they're going to come at them hard at Croke Park next week.